battery's running out on the clutch, so I'll play this on. This is just going to come out and I'll call it a day on this video, make it a short one. But because what I'm going to be doing, the only reason I've taken the clutch out is because I need all of these to use on that engine. So what we can also do as well is lock that together while we're taking out that one. Which I do think is a 15. 14. Which was already out. There it is. There she is. Huh? It's going to die any minute now, the battery, but I'm just going to undo that and take the clutch. So next time you see, all of this will be bare, but I'll not take the gearbox out. Thanks for watching. Bye. Right, so I've stripped down all of the sprocket, chain, clutch mechanism, and they've been soaking in oil. And I've ordered from MB Viton oil seals for drive side and mag side, so both sides of the crank. I'm not using this crank, as I said before, I'm leaving that in there. That's out of an old 200 engine anyway. The one in my Series 2 is more suitable to what's going into this engine anyway, and it's going to be used on the Series 2. I've got a ton of screws as well, which you use 4 of these on the mag bearing hole, mag flange, or should I say drive side flange, not mag side. I'm getting my mags and the drive sides mixed up, but never reuse these screws, always buy new. They're 20mm M6s. You want 4 of them. I've bought a ton of them because I'm fed up of using what I've got and not having any when I need some. So basically I'm ready to take the gearbox out, and we're going to take the silent bushes off. These are Scooters India ones, as I've explained before, which I rate as, for the money, probably about as good as any of them out there. So our gearbox, that if you remember, was turning on a 6pence, nothing rubbing there. Probably about as nice as you're going to get a gearbox. It turns lovely, you know, really nice. I'm a bit stretched there, but so these are 11mm heads on them, so that's a 10. So I'm just going to do them, undo them. This gearbox, oh sorry about that, this gearbox is going into the engine. I'll show you that in a second. So again, undo them in a crisscross pattern. 2. And again, when we come to use this gearbox, we'll have to make sure it's shimmed up properly. That'll be our 6 bolts out in a set, or nuts I should say, off. The engine I've got has got all these studs in it already, so I don't need to take them off and reuse them. The ones that are loose enough already, I'm just going to pop on there. Because you know from the previous video that I did, don't put all these in, just put 2 or 4 or 3 of them in when you're doing your setting of your gap between this washer, so your space for your gearbox. You don't want to put them all in, because you're going to be taking them in and out, in and out. We want the 6 washers off of there and the 6 nuts. I've got some more of these if I need them anyway. If you remember, I did put a bit of red Loctite on. Just to hold them. Don't normally do that, but hey ho. Depends which camp you're in, whether it's a needed thing or not. There you go, that's number 2. Number 3. That's number 3 off. If that was loose, I think these are still being held by the Loctite, so yeah, they are. Obviously you don't Loctite them up when you're taking the stud out. Shows you how good Loctite is, doesn't it? And that's probably coming out as well. They can go back in anyway. It's as I say, it's not something that I need these studs. The other studs are Scooters India studs. They're perfectly usable. I say lots of people seem to be down on Indian stuff, but I just look at it, they take half their village into town on them, so, or used to anyway before they got rich. So they're as good or bad when they get going as anybody else, you know what I mean? It's just, it's that it'll do mentality that they've got that probably winds people up. That's need a screwdriver on that one because that's holding. What we need now is some M6 bolts, some long ones. I'm going to find them out and stick them in, and then we'll pull this off the gearbox end plate. As you probably noticed, this is an LI one. The reason I'm using that is because we got the kickstart conversion. I don't like the ramp on a GP. It never seems to engage properly. You're kicking from down here, as I explained before, where at least this one you can set to kick more or less straight away. Turn over the gearbox, kick over the engine. Again, that's a personal preference. It's not something that I'm telling everybody to do. If you're quite happy with your GP one and the GP setup, then be my guest. But I'm just going to cut away while I go and get the bolts for this. Got to find them. Bye for now. Right, so I found 2 M6s, and I'm just gonna, they're tight against the engine casing at the moment, so just do them about a turn, 2 turns each. Freed my washer off there. You can already probably maybe make out that this is already moving off. So do about 2 turns again, 2 and 2 turns again. Yeah. You can see where that's already on the edge of the studs. It does help that we've got 2 out, so. What you can sometimes find is this Christmas tree is still stuck, so I can do it with the wood. hammer. Just give that a tap. And again on the edge of the gearbox there. So you're just hitting on that. You can actually use a hammer on there to loosen it. I've seen people use screwdrivers and everything on them, so. And again. What you find is because these screws are up this end, it's at an angle. So you're better off to just give that a bit of a tap, straighten it up. As I say, I'm only hitting with a wooden end. That's already nearly off actually. It should come off quite easy because it's not been on long. And then we'll be taking out the gears and having a look, making sure they're all right. We're not far off there now. We're clear of the studs. It's just Christmas tree that's holding it. See, that's gone in now. When that's off the shank, this part will move quite easily now. See what I mean? So we've not used any metal on metal. This is all nice still. Can undo these bolts now for the time being. Roller bearing. Actually that one, I think what I'm doing, that goes on there. And these were all new bearings not too long ago when the engine was built, so we will clean up everything again before we build it. But what we're looking for in here is any chafing on the gears. Bear in mind that's brand new gearbox, so it has to mesh in, which is normal. We have to settle down. So I'm keeping them bolts out because I need them when I come with the other engine casing, and I'll show you how far I got with that one. I didn't realise my camera had died, so I only brought out one battery when I was doing the last video on this. So what you'll be getting is half of what was left when it died, and when I put the chain guides on. I mean, it's just 2 bolts and I've just got them spaced out at the moment. I'm just taking out the 2 bolts that I've used. You can purchase the T bars, as they're called, the correct tools for doing that, but again, you know, do you actually need them? Was that any hard graft? No, it wasn't. In my opinion, it wasn't anyway. So the gearbox end plate's off, so we don't have to put any bearings in there. That bearing is new, so I'm going to stick that in with the rest of the parts, and then we'll take off our bearing. Will go with that. There's been a bit of rubbing on the spacer there. We've got our what it is, it's just freezing today, but normally these parts just fall off, but I don't know whether it's because it's cold, they just seem to be stuck. They're free, they're not, you know, they're not welded on or anything. Let's take off that shim, gearbox shim. There you go, and then we can take the gears off one by one. That's what I was saying, it's just got a little bit of a score on there. I'll take off the gears one by one. So gear number 1, what you're checking for is any chips out of here. Looks pretty good. No problems with these gears. They're all nice and sharp. Right, so that's number 1. Number 2. This was a brand new gearbox anyway, so there we go. Number 2. Still got a bit of grease. I'm always a bit dubious about building stuff with grease because this gearbox hole doesn't seem to get rid of the grease. So again, all of the gears are good. So number 2, number 3. Again, you're looking for any chips out of these, any chips out of there. I'm not expecting, because like I say, I haven't done millions of miles with that gearbox. And number 4, again, you can see it's new and still got the grease that's not actually come off. And we've got our sliding dog, our Christmas tree. Again, you're inspecting for any chips, wears. It's nice. And our shim and our bearing, which was new. We've got tons of grease still around the rear hub bearing. Let's give my hands a wipe again. As I say, we're not using these. What I can do is move the gear selector so I can get to the bolt, which again is an M10, M8, sorry, I think it's M8. Yeah, might be able to just move that in a tad more than that. That's what I didn't want to happen, but I've got them anyway, I've not lost them. The 2 bearings. I'm going to leave them out actually, where I know where they are. Put them in that packet with the gearbox, with the oil seals, and then I've hopefully the spring's still in there. I'm just going to stick them in there so I don't lose them. If you stick them in the oil, you've got to try and find them in the oil. But, that's 11 on there, isn't it? Not 10. So we've got the socket for that. Undo the beast. We need all this mechanism out because we're going to be reusing this. I don't know why it's so greasy. To say, when I've got these off, the silent pushes, then more or less this engine casing, I've got everything off that I'm taking off of it. So what I'm going to do, I'll cut away in a minute and I'll put these studs back in again because I don't need them. Right. And then you'll find out that this will then pull up and out, or at least it should do. Where is the spring still in there? So I'll turn it. No, fleet. No. Yeah, there it is. You can get different strengths of springs on here. They can be so hard you can't change your gears, but it's supposed to stop it jumping out of gear. I must admit I've not had that on any Lambretta, and I've not had it on any Vespers either. If you use good stuff in the first place, then you know there's no problem, is there? So all we do is pull the sliding dog away, and again we're just making sure this was a new one again, so it's all square, it's not battered. These are sacrificial anyway. They're going to wear out before the gearbox, but we need that anyway. So if we take that out the way, and then we can slide up our gear selector. They normally just come, but sometimes a screwdriver helps. It should just pull up. It's on a like a cog. What I'll do is, again, I'll just pull that off out of line. I don't know if this is in the way. It shouldn't be. You know, that should pull like that. I don't know if you can see the splines on there, but that's why that's not. You know, we've just got to let go of the splines, and then we'll be away. Again, with this rear, this is going to come with the bearing anyway, but you can just knock that out by turning the engine around and doing it. So what I'll do is I'll get the engine studs put back in again, these two, and then I'll cut back in when we've got the engine around, and I'll show you pulling this out, because I think the last engine I built was just a bare engine casing, so there weren't much, you know, dismantling as such like this one's got. And again, just keep all of the oil and grease as much as you can mopped up. But I'll also go through this engine where I think the little iron filings have come from, or alley filings. I think they've just come from behind the Christmas tree. But again, that's typical of Indian. It shouldn't, because it should pull and clear, and when I built the engine it wasn't rubbing on that. But if you push it back without the gearbox end plate on, you can sometimes hear these rubbing. Again, a Dremel will clear that up for you. How far do you go with sorting out, you know, their rough castings basically? I don't know. So what I'll do is I'll cut away, get these put back in again, and I'll cut back in again. See you in a minute. Right, so we've got the engine spun around, so you can see, hopefully that will just knock through with the wooden end of the hammer. There you go, really good. Oil seal in place. I'll change that anyway. That's a, I'm pretty certain that was an MB rear hub bearing. And again, if we spin it around now, what I was going to show you was this bit here, just give it a tap, and that should be enough. No, it's still stuck. So we've got our arm, our oil seal and our shim. And this is the GP version. The LI one, this is bolted on. A lot easier to set your gearbox up with an LI one. But again, like all of the Italian scooters, they were always cheapened towards the end because they weren't selling them, and people weren't doing the maintenance on them anyway. So all we've got to do now is tap that bearing with the wood. I might have to heat the casings actually, because that doesn't seem to want to come out. And shim on top. Stirrup, as it's called, with paws on it. Obviously make sure they're nice and square. That was all new. That's why I'm reusing that. It was new anyway. Let me see if I've got my bearing. So it should be here. Somewhere on there. So what I will have to do is just warm up the casing around the bearing. I don't want to go too hard hitting the bearing to get it out. just going to use a bit of gas on it. Again, if I show you, I'm only heating going to be heating the outside of here. Don't go anywhere near the bearing. You've got an oil seal in there. If you start melting the oil seal, this one was a new one. As I say, I'm pretty certain that was all MB in here, because I didn't have a good enough rear hub bearing. But like I say, I'll heat that up and I'll knock that out. There's no hard and fast rule to doing it, you just take your time. It should tap out. I was expecting it just to fall out more or less anyway and not be hard, but obviously because it's stone bang cold, everything is grappling on everything. So yeah, I'll just fire up the gas and then I'll cut back in when I've got that bearing out. Right, so I've warmed it up and just give it a few gentle taps with the wood. It's out. I'm surprised the actual bearing feels warm, but I did only do the casing. Made in Italy. But that's our bearing I'll be using in the rear hub. So this engine, apart from the silent blocks now, is stripped down as far as I want to go with it. So what I'm going to do is just take the engine off the stand and remove these. So I'll cut back in when I've done that.